Okay, so let's begin. The first thing that I want to go through is just using our basic text tool. So when I click on the text tool, I will be required to click onto the screen, and then I can type out whatever I would like my text to be. Now, there is a setting where we can change the program to type on the screen versus just typing in the upper right-hand corner text box. So if you go into the Tools, General Options, under the View tab, you'll see that there's a option that says on-screen text typing. So I have that checked, and that means I can type directly onto the screen instead of just having to type in the upper right-hand corner box, okay? So we will type out our text, and then we can see that we have some options available to us in the upper right-hand corner. So we can click right into where we see those yellow letters, and it will open up our font catalog. All of these fonts here are already pre-digitized for you, so they do not need much editing. The only thing you might be changing is, say, the density or the underlay, but as far as how they are digitized, they're already done and checked for you, so they're pretty easy to use. So you can use any of these fonts and just click, and it will change that text. You can change the size, the spacing, so the spacing in between letters. If we want these very spaced out, we can enter in a value there. We can change the line spacing if we have multiple lines. And then a couple of important things here. We have the type option. It's located just above apply, and that will allow us to change it into, say, a circle shape. So if I click apply, we can see now I have a circle text, and so that's going to be good for making round patches, or if we just want our text to curve over top of something, we can use that option there. And with the different tiers of Chroma, you'll see different options, but the circle is very common, and that is available in every tier of Chroma. Okay, so we can change that back. Now, let's say I actually wanted to change or modify these individual letters. Right now, this text that I have is just one group. It's one object that I can move around on the screen. I can edit the size easily. But if I wanted to edit each individual letter, I have to do something first, and that is going to be right-click, break up text. So when I break up the text, it will no longer look like a text option. It will be individual objects. It will be the T, the E, the X, and the T separate. So when I click break up text, now we can see in our lower right-hand sequence panel, I have the T as a group, the E as a group, and so on. So now I can actually click my shape tool, and I can modify the outlines, or I can change the start and stop point. So I can actually pull these outlines and really modify this letter to create something that's very unique to me. So you can really create sort of your own fonts just by using something that is already pre-digitized and by editing the outlines. I can also grab on any of the points and really edit the points. So you have full editing capabilities of each of these letters. So again, now they don't act as one full group, they're individual groups. So if I wanted to try and move these into a circle shape, I actually don't have the same text settings available in the upper right-hand corner because it is looking at these as individual objects. Okay? So what we can do is we can edit the outlines, we can move them closer together, we can do quite a bit of editing here. I can rotate them, so we can make something very interesting and unique, and that will definitely set your design apart from something else. So if I wanted to group this back together, I certainly can. I can just drag this imaginary box. So we're selecting all of them, and then I can right click and choose group. And then that way it will move them all around as one object. So we can just keep them grouped together. You can always ungroup, so you can group and ungroup. And now we're back to having each individual letter as an object. So using our text tool, we can use any of those fonts that are in the catalog. And then if we want to make those edits, we can definitely make those edits and have something like this. When we're making an edit, so we have a full webinar on shaping and editing, but just again to show you some of the things that we can do, we can edit the angle lines. So that's showing us the direction of the stitch. So we can actually change those if you would like. It makes sense to really keep them kind of where they are. We can edit the outlines, so we can pull these pink lines out. We can even just edit the single blue squares or dots, and we can adjust the points. So the blue dots are the points, and we can drag those wherever we would like. Anytime I am finished with making a change, you can just click onto the screen, or you can right click and it will show you what you changed there. So as I'm just moving things around, I'm just right clicking. The start and stop point, those are going to be set for you in a default area, and the program really knows what is best, especially when it comes to text. The reason we might change the start and stop point is to, say, avoid a long jump stitch, or just to have our machine finish off one letter and begin the next in the same area. And that's easier for the machine to maneuver. So on the T, it starts at the bottom left, it will finish at the top right. So start at the green, end at the red. And now the E, it's going to start right where the T ends. So the machine is only jumping a little bit, and that's better for the machine, better for timing. So just helps to really maneuver everything nicely. But usually you don't have to edit those too often. The time where you might edit that is if you have some shapes that are very close together and you want to change the start and stop point so that your jump stitch is in like a different area. So that might be an example. Now let's type out some additional text, and we're going to look at our styles. So I'm going to choose this freehand text. It doesn't matter really what it is. So I'm looking at the darker grayish font now, and we're going to dive into an option that we have. It is located next to the apply button in the top right hand corner. So this small icon that has 3 dots is very hidden, and if you were to click there, you can see just a small box pops up and it says text style. So what we're using this for is to save some settings that we apply to our text. So I'm going to take this font and I'm going to change the size to 1.5 inches high. So I'll do 1.5 inches high. So it's much larger now. I'm going to change the density to 0.3. And I'm going to change the underlay to, say, a contour underlay. And then just for fun, let's add in some pull compensation. So what I'm doing here, I'm applying some settings, and you might be applying these settings due to what material you're working on, or what kind of design you have there. So if I'm working on like a stretchy material, or I might have a different underlay. So if you're applying all of these settings, what you can do is you can save all of these settings so that you can quickly apply them going forward. I'm going to click on that small 3-dot icon next to the apply key, and I'm going to save as, and it will ask me for a style, and I will write Chroma style, and we just apply. So now that I have that style saved, let's open up a new tab. I'm going to type out something. I'm actually going to choose a different font. And what we can do is, if I click on that 3-dot icon and choose Chroma style, it will apply those same settings that I just set. So it will change the font, the underlay, the density, the pull compensation, and anything else that I may have changed. So I'll click Chroma style and I will click apply. And there we have it. It's at 1.5 inches high. So we're looking at the right hand corner. I have the density to 0.3. The underlay is a contour underlay, and the pull compensation is at 120%, just what I set to that other word. So what you're doing here with that box is you're applying different styles. So here is, say, a 3D puff style that I had saved. Okay, so you can switch back and forth. You can create many, many different styles here, and it's very easy to just click apply, and that will save you quite a lot of time. So I'm going to read through some of the questions that we have. So for this, changing the font style, the settings, they do apply when you're choosing that font style. So we had a question that was, will the settings adjust to the changes made? Yes, all of those settings that I chose and saved as Chroma style, they will apply to whatever I write out on screen. I just need to click on that option and apply that style. So the pull compensation, we're not going to dive into that very much at this point. We have a different webinar that goes into detail on that. What the pull compensation is it's applying a wider outline. The stitches are going to overcompensate for the pulling of fabric. So the pull compensation depends on many factors: the material, the design, what type of backing you might be using, the size of the design. So there's no quick chart to tell you what the pull compensation should be. It is something that you will play with over time and just figure out what works best for you. There's no black and white or right or wrong. So it's really just trial and error and testing things out. So we have a full webinar that goes over all of these settings tabs. And again, there's no quick answer. So if you guys are having any questions about that specifically, just send us your file, what you're doing, what material, and more details, and then we can sort of give a suggestion. So when we're saving this, when we're applying this font style, it does apply the font, the size, and all of the settings that you set to it. So if I were to change, say, the color settings, so I want every letter to be a different color, if I save this down again as Chroma style, then once I create something new, let's say I write out anything here, I'm just going to type something, and I want to apply the style, Chroma style, we apply it, and then we can see we have each letter different color again. And we're back to that same font, the freehand. We're back to the same height. We're back to all of those settings that I chose. So it will apply everything that you set. Okay? So, and here when I chose different colors for each letter, that's just going to allow me to choose any color for any letter on the machine. It doesn't matter what they are here. I just know that they're all different. So on the machine, I could set black, white, black, white, black, white, and so on. This is just differentiating each letter. So I don't need to worry about what shows on the screen, because the DST file doesn't hold that specific color information. It just knows that you have that many color changes. So we went through just the basic text tool, the text styles. Now let's go through using true type fonts. So a true type font is a font that you'll find in your computer. Like, for example, when you use Word and you have all of those fonts to choose from, those are a true type font. You can download many free true type fonts from the internet for free. So if you were to search free true type font, you'll find many websites where you can scroll through and you can easily download them. So to use a true type font within Chroma, this essentially opens up our font number to be almost an infinite amount of fonts, because as long as someone's still creating more and more TrueType fonts, we're able to use them. If we download 1,000 TrueType fonts to our computer, we then have 1,000 TrueType fonts to use within Chroma. So I will show you how to use them, but it is important that a TrueType font will not always be 100% perfect. And I'll show you the difference. So I have something typed out using the text tool. And if we look at the upper right-hand corner, just below where I have the yellow letters, I have the font name there, and then I have a small box that has a TT next to it. I'm going to click there, and now I'm going to click into that area where it shows it has a font name, Bauhaus. I'm going to click into there, and it will open up this screen, and this should look pretty familiar. If you've ever used Word, this is very similar to what you would use if you're typing something just on a document. So for example, if we look at some of these fonts, we have like Brush Script, we have Chiller. Like, this is something that I downloaded from the internet for free. We have all of the sort of regular common fonts, Cooper and Comic Sans. So you can really click on any of these and just press OK, and it changes it to that font style or font type. Now this one looks very good. The stitch out looks nice and clean, and I would probably just, again, adjust the density so that it thickens it up a bit. I do want to show a style that might not work very well. And the reason why not all of these are going to work perfectly is because Chroma does have to auto digitize essentially. Let's try this Curls font. That one's not bad. That one looks very good. I'm going to go into English Town. Now, English Town is a very decorative Old English style font. So if I look at this up close, there are some things that I will want to edit. If you look at, first of all, the R, there are a couple sections that really could be combined into one. If I look at the U, let me just decrease the density so we can see better. If I look at the U, on the top of the U, I can see that the stitches are going in a very odd direction. So some of these things you will want to take notice of. If it looks odd on the screen, it will most likely 99% stitch out incorrectly or messy. So for this style, for example, I would want to make a little bit of an edit. So to make any edit, we're going to right-click. We will break up the text. So now I can take a look at the R, and if I click into my shape tool, I'll be able to see all of my points, my outlines, the yellow angle lines, as well as the teal split lines. So the teal lines, or the light blue, those are segmenting this shape so that my satin stitch can run, say, top to bottom in one area and then run left to right in another area. So these split lines, if I were to, say, delete this one here, then I would want my stitches to really run in the same direction. And so for that change, this area of the letter is now looking a lot cleaner. TrueType fonts, they may just need a little bit of an edit, and you can easily edit them. And we have a video on the YouTube channel that does show, full editing of letters. So just keep in mind your TrueType fonts, they will not be perfect. It does depend on the style. If I try to use a TrueType font that is very brushy or has a lot of small thin lines, it probably won't stitch out perfectly and you'll have to make more edits to it. But this feature does allow us to use quite a few more fonts with Chroma. And we can do this with any version of Chroma. We can use it with Chroma Inspire. We can use it with Chroma Plus, with Chroma Luxe. And you can still use some of the same features, the density, the underlay. You have essentially all of the same options with these TrueType fonts. So if I wanted to add in more spacing, I can do that there. So some of the questions we have was to re-explain the blue and yellow lines. And this is covered in some of our other webinars that we have posted on the YouTube channel. The yellow line is showing us the direction of the stitches. If I edit this yellow line here in the middle of the U to go down slanted, we can see now the stitches are moving in a down slanted position. The yellow lines, they should be very consistent and move around the letter in sort of a ladder or train track sort of movement. We want them to be have good spacing and to really be moving in the correct direction. So I don't want to have one going this way and another going the opposite way. It's going to give us a very odd stitch out and it's just not going to look clean. So the yellow lines, you can move these around. You can also delete them. So if I wanted to clean up some of these lines, I can right click and I can delete the angle lines. I can even, and I'll just have an empty shell of a letter. The blue lines are showing me where that stitch direction can change. So I can have stitches running horizontally in the top half of this letter, and then they can drastically change to run vertically in the bottom half. So with letters that have a serif or an extra sort of wing or branch, we need these split lines so that we can change the direction of the stitch. So I do need to add those angle lines back, and that way I have some stitches that will fill in. So I'm just drawing them throughout the letter in the direction that I want those stitches to run. You can put as many or as little as you would like, but if you really only have one line in there, it's going to really give you only one sort of direction. You need to have them kind of move around the letter. So hopefully that clears that up as far as the yellow and blue lines. So we had a question about small lettering. The program does have some small fonts, and they're just set up to stitch out at a smaller scale. So if you look through your catalog, you might see that you have monogram, puffy, small, or if you have plus or lux, I mean, you do have applique fonts as well. The small fonts are just ready to stitch out at a small scale. So if I wanted to type out something in that font style, it's just already at a small scale, but you can really use any of them at a small scale. Just be sure to choose the correct settings. As far as the density, we don't want them to be too dense. The underlay, usually a center line underlay, and then we can add pull compensation if we're doing a stretchy material. So, but any of these can be used small scale. So we went through the text tool, text styles, TrueType fonts, editing fonts, and now we are going to look at the font editor. So as a reminder, the font editor is only available in Chroma Lux. So this is the one feature that I'm showing today that is only available in our Chroma Lux package. What the font editor will allow us to do is to bring in DST files that we may have purchased online. So there are plenty of packages that you can buy from Etsy, say, for example, that are fonts that are already digitized and they're in DST format. So you have your A, your B, your C, and so on. So it's essentially a collection of files. If we go into the Tools Font Editor, we will see a screen pop up here. And there's quite a few options, but let's go through just the basic how we create these fonts or how we import them. So in this case, I'm going to import some letters that I had purchased. I will click on New, and we will type in, I'll just call it Apple, just for sake of having it be shown up first. We're initializing it from Stitch Designs. So we can bring in a TrueType font and we can edit each letter, or we can bring in these letters from Stitch Designs, meaning DST files. I will find the folder, and so I'm going to look for it. And I know I have the folder somewhere here. So give me one moment. Okay, sorry about that. So I was just missing my file folder. You guys should be able to still see and hear me, so just send me a chat. So we're going into the font editor, and we're choosing new, and we named this font. We're bringing it in from Stitch Designs. So what we're looking for now is the folder that has those Stitch designs. So we can look on our desktop or open up a folder that has all of those letters. So let's just open this folder, and we will click OK. Oh, it already exists. And after we click OK, it shows us to right-click on the letters to import the Stitch designs. So what we're doing here, after it opens up our outlines, so it has A through Z, uppercase and lowercase, we would right-click and we would import the letter that we have from our folder. So let's say I'm opening up this letter here, and I open it, and it imports that letter. So this may seem very time-consuming, but if we're just clicking through each one, importing, then as soon as we save this down as our font, we can use that purchased font within our text tool. So if I were to save it down, then I can click save, I can exit out of here, and when I click into the text tool, we're going to see in our catalog, I'll have that option here. So I named it ABC, and you can see it's in my font catalog. Okay, so for example, this ABCD was another one that I was testing out. I had named something else, Apple, and you can see that these are actually fonts that I brought in. Here's another one. It's Gaudi Test. I created that with the font editor. So just giving you an example of how we can use the font editor, and then we just type out what we would like. Another thing that you can do with that font editor is you can use a true type font. So Gaudi, this font is actually a true type font. And what I did was just go in and edit each letter, and I saved it. So now if I want to use this font style going forward, I don't have to make those edits every single time. So if we're using a true type font, I'll go into Tools, back to the font editor, we'll create new, and we'll just name it true, and we're going to initialize from a true type font. So I can find the true type font that I want to use, and it brings me those letters. So from here, I'm going to double click on the A, and I can see on my screen I have that A. So I have this letter, and I just want to make sure that I either I auto digitize and make it a little run stitch, or I can convert it into, maybe I want it to be a complex fill. I can make it any sort of stitch type that I want, and then I can just click on the save, and it will save it into my font editor. So now when I go to use this font, I can click on the text tool, and I named it true, so we're going to look for that. Here it is, and we have our font, which I didn't include all the letters, so that's why it's blank. But you can do either way. So you can do bring in DST files that you purchased, or you can use a true type font and sort of make different font edits and then save it down. So another question we had was applique fonts. So we can use our applique stitch tool, or we can just type out our word, and with the higher tiers of Chroma, you have applique fonts that are already ready to go. And the way that these are set up, they have a placement line, a tack down line, and then they also have that satin stitch that will stitch over. So if you're trying to change a true type font to an applique font, it's not really a one-click option, because what applique is, it's a satin stitch along with a placement line and a tack down line. So what this is going to stitch out like is, we have our placement line that shows us where to put our applique cutout. The tack down line will tack down that cutout, and then the satin finishes off the edges. So this is something we would need to do manually if we wanted to create an applique font. We will not be able to just convert a true type into an applique. If you have Chroma Luxe, then you can use your font editor, and you can essentially create an applique font using the font editor. But if you have the other tiers, then it will not work out. So, but if you do have the Chroma Luxe, then if I open these letters, I can convert it into applique from there. So that might be an option, but again, this you have to make some edits, but you can save that down, and it is essentially an applique now. So this can only be done with Chroma Luxe, but if you have just the other tiers, if you're hoping to use a true type and make it applique, you would really have to do that manually from the beginning. So any other questions that you guys have, you may chat them in the chat box. If I missed your question, you can re-type it there. If you want a recording of today, please email service@ricoma.com and put in the subject line February 4th webinar. So we can then send you the recording. If you guys have very specific questions based on what your file is or something that you are digitizing, you can always email service. Please include the original RDE file, and then we can help you out from there when it's something very specific. So we have webinars twice per week. The topics will differ. I do recommend to sign up for as many as you can attend. And if there's a specific topic that you want to know more about, we take suggestions always. And definitely check out the YouTube channel, as we have past webinars on the YouTube, as well as shorter videos showing many of the functions that we have available to us.